So hello everyone, Charles Banfield here with another Karate Canucks conversation, and today we have another first. This time we have an instructor and student pairing with Sensei Gary Legacy and Sensei Randy Dauphin. So I'll start with a brief introduction, and then we'll get into some I think will be an interesting conversation here. So Sensei Legacy holds a 10th Dan black belt rank and the title of Hanshi in Shorin-Ryu Karate and Hakutsuru under Sensei Anthony Sandoval. Other notable teachers he's trained under have included Sensei Richard Kim, Sensei Wally Slocki, Sensei Allen, and also Sensei Harold Warden. Sensei Legacy has amassed over 50 years of experience practicing, teaching, and competing in the martial arts. And in the late 1970s, he founded the Legacy Shorin-Ryu Association, which is based in St. Thomas, Ontario. Today, this association boasts hundreds of members, and many top students have gone on to lead schools across Ontario and beyond. Sensei Legacy is also the author of several articles and has a book that he's recently produced titled The Elite Fighter. And one of the more recent of his extensive list of achievements was his induction into the Canadian Black Belt Hall of Fame in 2019. And also joining us this evening is Sensei Randy Dauphin, who's one of Sensei Legacy's most senior ranked students. He's been training with him for over 30 years. He's also a student of Shihan Nicklaus Suino, who's a notable Iaido instructor based out of Michigan, I believe. And as a teacher and competitor throughout his martial arts career, Sensei Dauphin currently holds a 7th Dan and the title of Kyoshi in Shorin-Ryu Karate and Hakutsuru, which is the white crane. And he's also a 4th Dan in Iaido and the head instructor of Legacy Martial Arts and Fitness in Kitchener, Ontario. So combined, Sensei Legacies and Dauphin represent over 80 years of martial arts experience, and they also represent half of the team that hosts the Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat podcast, which is a duty that they share with Shihan Nicklaus Suino and Sensei Sean Benson. So with all of that said, welcome to you both to the Karate Canucks podcast. Really a genuine pleasure to speak with both of you today. And I've been really looking forward to this opportunity for some time now. So really appreciate your coming on.
Thank you, Jeff.
So yeah, so the way that I normally start these off is, I'll ask a couple of pretty basic, simple questions, nothing too hard or serious. And then, as the opportunity arises, we'll sort of dive into some topics in that. So I'll start with Sensei Legacy. Can you give us a bit of general background on, where you're from and kind of what started you on your martial arts journey? I understand you're an East Coaster like myself, so.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes.
I was born in Dalhousie, New Brunswick, and when I was 2, my parents moved to Rimouski, Quebec, and then when I was 8, we moved to Sarnia, Ontario. And I was always interested as a young person in karate. It was like something mysterious, something I always wanted to try. I saw ads in the back of books, sent away for these things and that. And then when I was about 22 or 23, I moved to London, Ontario, and there happened to be a karate club starting out that was headed by Harold Warden. So I thought I would go in and have a look, and when I did that, it drew my interest. I said, my body felt it. It said, this is what you want to be. It was almost like calling out to me. I don't know how else to say it. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be afraid. There were like 60 people on the floor. It was a huge gym, and I didn't want to watch it and think it was too tough. So what I did first was join. And then I had committed my money, so I knew I was going to go. And the moment I put my bare foot on that mat, I had a hard time withdrawing, like just leaving class. Just stay always an extra. I'd always be the last guy off. I'd spend an extra half hour just doing my basics. I stuck to it.
Stuck with it, yeah. So it's been how many years now? What was the year that you joined with Sensei Warden?
1971.
71. Okay, so 50 years.
Yes.
Okay, exactly 50 years.
February 28th.
February 28th. Okay. So so that was in London, and I think Sensei Dauphin, London is where you found Sensei Legacy, if I'm correct.
Yep, I grew up in Windsor, Ontario, and like Sensei Legacy, I was always interested in karate. Did lots of sports. Sensei Legacy and I had a lot of common interests when I first met him. So he said he's from Sarnia. He lived in Sarnia when he was 8. I'm from Windsor, so kind of both border town people. Both have this love of motorcycles. We both played football. We both played hockey. So athletic. And like Sensei Legacy, I had some family members who did martial arts, and I'd kind of been in and out of dojos. Sensei Copeland's dojo in Windsor is one that I had gone to before, not to train, but just gone in. And for me, it was fortuitous when I went to the University of Western Ontario in Frosh Week in 1989. I was doing what Frosh do in 1989. I was in a dorm with a bunch of other people. And some guy said to me, he was listening to me talk, and he said, "You need to meet this karate teacher." He didn't say you need to join karate. He said, "You need to meet this karate teacher." And I said, "Oh, yeah." And I talked to him for a couple of minutes, and he said, "Meet me here on Wednesday night." And I met him there on Wednesday night. And he took me to Aldhouse College at the University of Western Ontario. And I went in there and I met Sensei Legacy. I don't want to copy his words, but it was the same thing. I just remember as soon as I walked into the room, which was nerve-wracking, he said there were 60 people. There had to be 60 or 80 people when I walked in as well, 10 or 20 black belts there and all kinds of students. And I just remember walking in and thinking, this is so great. I am never going to stop doing this. And again, it's like a calling, right? I imagine there's other activities that people go into that they have similar feelings.
So London is the common thread there. So you trained with him throughout your university years, I'm assuming, and then you stayed on. So how did that work? Did you move out of London and maintain your relationship with him that way, or did you stay in London for a while longer?
I left London after, people probably don't believe this, I left London, I was a brown belt when I left London. And Sensei Legacy will tell you that I drove back from Cambridge, Kitchener area to his dojo in St. Thomas or his dojo in London at least 3 or 4 times a week. I would get done work and I would just get in my car and I would drive down the highway to take my lessons. And then often I would come home, it would be late at night because after class, we'd often go out, a group of us would go out and get a coffee and just chat. And that was my life and still is my life, quite frankly.
Still making the drive down.
So our relationship, yeah, Sensei Legacy is the godfather to all my children. You mentioned Benny Allen. I named my son after Benny Allen. My son's name is Benjamin Dauphin, and his namesake is Benny Allen.
Yeah, so there's one of the things that I've noted, because it's very obvious when you guys are speaking or you're speaking about each other and so on your podcast, is there's definitely a deep bond between the two of you. Whether it's it's more than, like you said before, it's more than just a love for the martial arts. There's many other things as well. So that's kind of a neat thing to see. And 30 years later, it's still pretty strong. It's pretty obvious. So with regard to training, and again, this would be first for Sensei Legacy. How would you characterize the training when you first started versus how you train and how you teach now?
Well, my sensei was fair sensei. His name was actually Harold Warden, but he was a newer sensei, and he had Wally Slocki, who was like probably the best Canadian martial artist of all time. He used to have him come in and teach us, I don't want to say properly, but in more advanced ways. He was a fighting master for sure. Great at kata, but everyone feared his fighting, everyone. And I was more intrigued by that. And he wasn't very friendly all the time. You know, you had to earn him wanting to teach you. The first time I stepped in the ring with him, he had a broken arm and he had a cast on, and I was a green belt. And I used to be a bit of an aggressive guy. So when the referee said go, I quickly stepped in and put my foot behind his front foot and punched him in the chest. And he went down. And he got back up very calmly. And the next thing I knew, he threw like a 3-kick combination at me. And I could have got a pilot's license that night. I was literally in the air on my way over 3 rows of students that were sitting on the floor. And I landed in a group of my friends. John Pearson, who was at that time my best friend, and is still my friend today, said, "Stay down." I didn't do that. I got back up, and he would tell me, "I'm going to kick you here and here and here." And he would do it, and I would go again. I was a green belt on my behalf. I had only been in there maybe 6 months or something. So basically, that was my introduction to karate in that way. Do we want to go further?
And you wanted to go further, yeah. So your introduction was kind of rough, from what I'm gathering.
Yeah.
The training, like obviously, it sounded like it was more of a full contact kind of scenario where if you got hit, there was no touch. It was just,
It was a hit. Yeah, they were hits. We never wore equipment. We never wore equipment in those days. None.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the guys who really wore equipment wore a mouthpiece to save themselves from losing teeth, basically. Then there was a variety of very, very good guys in that. Like, they were well plotted. They did real karate. I think the makeup of the dojo was everyone wanted to learn real karate. They didn't want the bobbing up and down and the touching. And we learned the proper karate from Wally Slocki, who was many times the Canadian, U.S., and world champion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that not being so easy was really what kept me there. I just wanted to be better than everyone else, and I needed to find somebody who could take me there. And you could easily see that Wally Slocki could do that.
So is that how you ended up training with Sensei Allen? Was it through Sensei Slocki? Because I know that he was an instructor.
He was his. Well, yes. Most of the greater persons in the Ontario area and Toronto specifically were Benny Allen students. They were noticeably better fighters.
So how would you, just following on the initial question then, how would you characterize how your training has evolved over the past decades or so? Like, are you still training or teaching the same way that you were taught when back in the 70s, or has it evolved?
I am teaching the same basics, the same theories, but a person like myself was mainly directed towards the physical aspect of it. I love the contact. I've had my hands and nose broken many times. But then at one point, some of my friends and through my own understanding, I needed to learn a little bit more about the philosophy and not only how, but why, correctly, why you do these things. And I directed myself to Richard Kim. Richard Kim was what they called in those days the walking encyclopedia of martial arts in Canada, in the United States and Canada. And he showed me those basic things. I'd like to say something that happened to us one time, which will tell you where his mind was at. I was going in for a seminar with him, and I was once the president of the Butokukai in Canada, and I was always with him. So when he changed, I was following him into a class, and I lost sight of him for a second, and the gym was at the right. But he walked in, looked to the left, and disappeared to the left, and I wondered to myself, where is he gone? I better make sure everything's okay. So I sort of stepped up a little quickly, and I saw him standing in front of a picture of Jesus Christ. He turned around and he looked at me and said, "You know, Legacy, Jesus Christ was a very great Buddha." So I just followed him from there.
And so, Sensei Dauphin, would you, maybe maybe you're a better judge of the evolution, or if there has been an evolution. Do you feel that Sensei Legacy's training methods have changed over the years, or are they the same as when you were, in your first year at Western and whatever? What was that introduction like?
Yeah, before we talk about that, I want to just say that Sensei Legacy, you maybe Sensei will nod. Benny Allen stopped teaching karate, and that's why Sensei Legacy went to Richard Kim. Benny Allen was actually living with Sensei Legacy in his home before he stopped teaching karate. So yeah, just I want to point that out, that Sensei Legacy didn't leave Benny Allen to go find another instructor. Master Allen stopped teaching karate, and that's why Sensei Legacy went and found Richard Kim. So to answer your question specifically, when I joined, Sensei was like 44 years old, younger, about 6 years younger than I am right now. We always, to be honest with you, got along really good. Unlike Sensei Legacy, who wanted to be, I thought I was tough, and it really quickly I figured out that I was not tough. Like it only took me like 6 or 4 classes to figure out, like, I'm standing in a room of assassins here. I can't fight any of them. I couldn't do anything against any of them. But to be honest with you, I would say when Sensei comes to the dojo now and teaches basics, he teaches them the same way he taught them 32 or 33 years ago. And I teach them the same way he taught me. And as a matter of fact, sometimes I try and use the exact same words that he used to teach me, because I just always think, well, it worked pretty good for me, so why would I want to change it up and do something different for the other people? So for me, I wanted a lot and he gave me a lot. And that's what I would say the difference would be. I wanted a lot and he gave me a lot. Sometimes and often more. little more than I could handle at the time, which is great. Like when I look back in retrospect, that was great. I remember a time when I think I was a yellow belt and I was doing cross body blocks, and Sensei came and stood in front of me and said, "You're not using your hips and you're not like hitting with intensity." And I did like 2 more. And then the next thing I knew, he was like in front of me, staring at me, and I was stepping forward and he was stepping back. And as we were doing cross body blocks, we were both doing them and we were crossing arms. And I learned a lesson right away, what he wanted me to do. It was a physical lesson. And that's the thing I like about Sensei Legacy is he'll give you the theoretical lesson, explain it all. But, you know, in the end, you have to experience it to actually know how to do it or know what it is. For you, Sensei Benfield, I would say, you know, the easiest way to, when somebody says, "What is it like to get punched in the face?" You could just punch them in the face and then they'll get all the answers right away. They'll have all the answers. You don't have to explain that. But Sensei has accumulated more, like good. So I guess in the beginning, Sensei will correct me if he feels different. It was more like, it was a lot of Jiu Kumite, free sparring, that free type of battling it out. And when Sensei Sandoval came along, then we started training in Hakutsuru. Then that's when we started delving into more like clinching, stand-up grappling, joint manipulation, pressure point striking. So, and that was probably, like Sensei said, for me, for my first bunch, it was mostly Jiu Kumite, and then we started getting into that a lot more, say, in the last 20 years. Sensei, would you say that's fair statement?
Yeah, it's been 30 years. Yes.
So the basics obviously are still there. Those are essentially eternal, but you
Yes.
can adding new nuances and new concepts and so on to the mix. And I'll throw this one out for both of you, and you can both answer however you want. But do you have a favorite concept or a favorite technique that you either like to do or to teach?
Karate and white crane. It's all one big piece.
Mm.
The thing that I like about our dojo is that most of the schools you go to, you'll note that you're doing kata and you're training and you're kata. And when you reach a 4th dan, you run out of katas. Is that not like your style?
Yeah, 4th or 5th dan. Yeah, you're basically done.
And well, there are 6 more dans. What's going on? So Terry Macaron, a very famous Shorin-Ryu guy from Long Island, New York, he was a friend of mine, or a sensei that I had met, to be respectful. And he says, "Gary, you're looking for the white crane, for Matsumura Hakutsuru." He says, "I know a guy who's down in Florida and down in the Florida area. If you go down there, tell him he'll give you an interview." So really, I look at it as karate being hard, fast, aggressive, teaches you a lot of lessons and how to be brave in many ways. And then when you get to be my age, you sometimes can't do the things that you used to do when you were younger. And so whilst you're doing hard striking and building up your mind and building up your body, when you get a bit older, they start to wane a little bit. And then the soft art, which in martial arts, hard is soft and soft is hard. When you strike, if I ever have the opportunity to show you, I gladly do that. So as you get older and you're not competing anymore, you have a long time. Like I'm 75 now, and I hope to be going maybe 10 years, 12 years or so. But I now have something to do, and it's nothing second to karate. Matsumura Hakutsuru is a deadly art. I don't teach it to children. or anyone who's not honorable, because the white crane art is much like poking you in the eye. You know, to get to the inside, and being calm, which you get from your karate, and being able to stick your finger in a person's eye is like hitting a nerve center. Nerve centers are very small, or being able to step in and grab somebody's brown spot. You don't know what that is, it's a nipple. It just, you know, it's small, it's a small area. So white crane is nerve striking and destroying the nerves so that the enemy can't use that limb again. So if I was to compare karate to white crane, I would say if you had a lamp and you broke the light bulb, it's like knocking somebody out, you're breaking somebody's ribs. It's really an easy fix. You go, you take it out, and you put the bulb back. And white crane's a little bit like coming along and cutting the cord, and nothing works. Right? So you don't want to teach that to somebody who's not responsible, but the results are much deadlier. There are at least 16 or 18 centers that you can hit, and the person will be rendered. It will not work anymore. The cord has been cut. So you require responsible people to learn. I won't teach white crane to this everyone. Or when I have a seminar and there are young people there, I always do a very simple, but show one spot in the arm somewhere where they can get the idea. But I never show the ones that are. So I find that the combination of Shorin-Ryu and Hakutsuru, which is white crane, are meant to be together. They fit together. It's like a pool cue, sort of. And that is the full circle, hard and soft, yin and yang.
So for you, Sensei Dauphin, would you happen to, and I'm not going to ask if you agree or disagree, but you know, in your own experience, you know, we all have our favorite things, our favorite katas, our favorite go-tos when it comes to if we're competing or if we're teaching or whichever else. Would you say that you have a favorite technique or a favorite concept that you either like to teach or to do? But, you know, whether you're teaching or competing, I guess is where I'm going with that. So
yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there, right? So when I was competing, I had favorite katas. And my favorite katas were the ones that I won with, right? They were the ones that I could do well with and I could beat the other people. Today, that's just not the case. You know, the concept about kata that I have is, and I've discussed this with Sensei Legacy a lot, and I've discussed it with some of my senior students. I think it's okay if you don't teach karate to have a favorite. Like if you're not a karate teacher, it's okay to have a favorite this or that. And you probably won't be as good as somebody who's delving into like all aspects of karate. But when you're a karate teacher, you have to know all of the katas and you have to know the concepts and bunkai behind all of them. And even if it doesn't necessarily work for my body type, let's say, but somebody who's bigger than me might come in and there's certain concepts from kata that person needs to get from. And if I dismiss that, I won't be a good teacher. They won't get good information and they won't become the best karate teacher they can be. Or karate practitioner they can be, excuse me. Sensei Sandoval introduced us to a concept where he would say, that is a basic kata and that is a fighting kata. And I don't think by basic he meant easy. Like I don't take it that way. I think he meant it, well, that is a kata mostly to reinforce your basics, right? It's like, for example, the pinyan katas. There's lots of great bunkai in there. I'm not saying that they're not, but you mostly do inside middle block, reverse punch, front kick, side kick, shudo, high block. And maybe there's one or two techniques in there that are unique. Whereas when you start getting into some of the other katas, you get into Hanshi kata or pasai or goju shiho, or then you get into white crane, you do Hakutsuru dai, pai ho. You hardly do any of those regular basics. And if you do, they're mixed in with other concepts that are very, very challenging. And I think more complete. They're more for fighting. They're more, and when I say fighting, fighting's probably a bad word. They're for conflict, right? It's for when you find yourself in a situation of conflict. There's many, many useful things. So, I mean, I spend most of my time today doing what my teacher tells me to do, which I spend, if you see me training alone in the dojo, I'm probably training white crane or my 6 black belt katas. So it would be, you know, Niji Shiho, Empe, Goju Shiho, Chinto, Kusenkyu, and then the Hakutsuru katas, Hakutsuru Dai, Nipai, those katas. And the one thing I do want to say to build on what Sensei Legacy said about they're two sides of the same coin, they must be, because it's the same person who founded both systems. Sokan Bushi Matsumura is the one who founded both Matsumura Hakutsuru and Shorin-Ryu Karate. So they're both. And what I like to tell people about what it is I say karate is your spear and Hakutsuru is the poison on the tip of the spear. So you better have a spear and you better have some poison. They don't work as well without each other.
That's it. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Hand in glove kind of thing.
And I like a good old fashioned reverse punch.
We're going to get right back to the basics. Yeah. Just Yakuzuki.
Yeah.
The go-to. So Sensei Legacy, I have heard of your kumite prowess over the years. I know that, and having, you know, tuned into a number of the episodes, the punch kick choke chat, you know, some of the stories come out and whichever. Do you, I know that you're not competing so much these days in kumite and so on, but if you were to choose, you know, when you were back in your competition days, was your preference the kumite aspect, kata aspect, or I'm not sure if you did kobudo as well, but you know, of those three, which would you say was your number one, and did that change over time?
Yes, kumite. I loved fighting. I still love fighting. I just have recently stopped fighting. The best fights I've had were with Randy. We would fight 2 or 3 times a week for an hour and a half, no equipment. But I like kumite. The original idea for me when I joined, from the comic books and stuff that I had heard of like that, was I wanted to be a good fighter. I wanted to be a good fighter, and I hope I'm not being racist here when I say this, because I'm not. But I was trying to figure out, how would I be like one of those Japanese persons, you know, or Okinawan persons? Like, how can a guy like me? I had a young mind. I was just 22. And I said to myself, well, we have all the same organs, same limbs and everything, and the same mind. If I just train hard, if I just get a good teacher and train hard, I should be able to do all these things. And I did. And I had really John Pearson, Jack Dunham, Wally Slocki, Randy Dauphin. All these people I fought with were excellent fighters. So I wasn't going to get away with anything easy. Right? And as far as kata and weaponry, kobudo, I did all sorts of kobudo, iai. Kata sometimes is dismissed wrongly. Kata is a discovering of yourself before You discover your weaknesses, you discover your strengths, you discover your mistakes, you discover your spirit. You put all those together, and it is part of fighting. You develop a better character by doing kata. You have to go inside, meditate, and the kata also teaches you the proper way of striking from the hips, how things should move before you put yourself in front of someone who can destroy you or harm you in any way. Kata is a very, very, very martial art.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the few aspects where you can go all out.
You can kill a person in kata, and you shouldn't in kumite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you said that very well.
Yeah, and Sensei Dauphin, would you, of the 3 Ks, kata, kumite, or kobudo, would you have a favorite now, and is it the same as it was when you first started?
Fighting is definitely my true love, and the reason why I would say that to you is because, and I did well in kata and kobudo. Like, I competed in Venezuela, I competed in Panama, I competed in Dominican Republic, I competed for Team Canada, and I won all my events always. Like, I won for all of those events. But if you were going to say to me, which one would it bother you the least, if it would be one of the other two. Fighting is, if I could only come home and have 1 gold medal, I would have wanted the gold medal in fighting when I was competing. But as Sensei Legacy said, I love kata. Now, I love training kata. And when I say training kata, I don't mean just, going in. I love going in the room alone and just training my kata, but I really like to train with Sensei Legacy, where we're doing bunkai and things are becoming more chaotic while you're doing your kata. It's not all prearranged and extremely organized. It's, it's more you're reacting to what's happening while it's happening. And, you drift from one kata to another kata. Maybe you're in Hakutsuru Dai, and then as you transition, you go into a pinyan kata or an Hanshi kata. I like that now when you're working with a partner and you can do that. And like you said about in kata, you can kill the person. I think in kata, you can eliminate the fantasy that sometimes exists in jiu-kumite, right? In jiu-kumite, well, it's true, when Sensei Legacy and are fighting, or I'm fighting with different black belts and things are happening in fractions of a second, and you have to be mentally and physically tough. I don't want to say in real life, that serves you well if you have a conflict with somebody, because they probably can't react nearly as fast as you can react. And as long as you control the time and the space, then you're probably going to be great with that. But I can tell you what won't happen is they're probably not going to put their hands up and start bobbing up and down and weaving and jumping around. And your kata is going to help you a lot with somebody who, if you get behind and they grab a hold of you, and you can't be at that range that you want, your kata is going to really help you if you train it properly with those types of conflict situations, I think. So
kumite is your favorite for fun, but you're kind of on the same wavelength as Sensei Legacy about the functionality of kata. And,
when you say it's fun, though, some people, they don't think what we think is fun is fun. Like, we describe it as fun. The people here describe it as fun. But most people, like, when you show up to work and, you got a big black eye and they're like, whoa, what happened to you there? Oh, it's fun on the weekend. I was fighting on the weekend. I was having a great time. They can't relate to that.
Yeah, it's a special breed. It's a special breed that will find that enjoyable. But well, there's a few of us around, so that's what keeps us going, I guess. Question, another one for both of you. So throughout your, you both have had extensive careers, and which are still going, obviously. I'm sure there have been some, epiphanies or eureka moments that you've kind of discovered either about yourself or about the arts, in different situations, whether in the dojo or outside the dojo and so on. Are there any that sort of come to mind as your most prominent kind of eureka moments? And I'm gonna seed this question for Sensei Legacy. I've heard the expression instant Zen voiced by you in the past. So maybe, I don't know if that was a eureka moment for you or not.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was training with Benny Allen, and he said, "We're going to go for your black belt grading." And like, I got ready. I was ready to explode. I was so ready. And he made me do my katas, made me do fighting with people. He asked me questions, and Benny Allen is known for, he'd like a 1-inch punch, or he'd do this to you, and pieces of skin off of your body would go under his nails. I'm sure he's buried with some skin of mine under his nails. And he said, "Okay, that's fine. You go over there." And I said, "Is that all?" "Yeah." He said, "Come over here with me." And I swear to you on my red belt, this is what happened. He walks me over to a maple tree that's about 10 inches around. He said, "Go ahead, punch that tree as hard as you can." And I sort of looked at him, and I saw that he was serious. So before I chickened out or made excuses, I let it go. And when I hit the tree, my hand moved back 2 inches in between my wrist bones and ran over the top of all the little island bones that were supporting the center.
Oh, yeah.
There. And it hurt, but I wasn't showing it. And he says, "Well, Mr. Legacy, now that you've done one for you, I want you to do one for me." So he said, "I want you to kneel down on the ground and punch up to your elbow in the grass." So I got down right away and started punching. It hurt. I could hardly feel my wrist. I just kept punching. And when I got about an inch into the grass, when I was punching, it sounded a bit like if you were walking in watery boots. He said, "Okay, Legacy, get up. I can't take any more." Instant Zen. I had never mouth off to your sensei. He is way wiser at the time than you will ever be.
Yeah. Way meaner too, by the sound of it, at that time.
More respectful than me, for sure.
How about you, Sensei Dauphin? Any eureka moments over the years?
We actually talked about this on PKCC just a little while ago. Somebody asked this question, and for me, it's always the same. And Sensei Legacy, one I've been able to correct, and one I still struggle with all the time. So the one that I've been able to correct was Sensei Legacy used to say, "You think you're ready, but you're not ready." In the beginning when I would fight, I wouldn't be ready. Like you'd have to get hit 2 or 3 times to wake up and start fighting the person. And Sensei would say, "You're not ready. You weren't ready there. You're still not ready. You think you're ready right now." Well, I think with his training and his teaching and my efforts, you probably wouldn't find that, or a person wouldn't find that when they stood in front of me now. My switch is pretty good. I'm pretty ready when it's time to go, or before it's time to go. Like, I'm pretty ready when I'm milling around. But the other thing Sensei used to say to me, and still continues to say to me, and the thing that I still struggle with, is he says, "One of your problems is you think everybody thinks like you, and you think they're like you, and then you have expectations that they'll handle situations and they'll do things the way, and he's 100% right. And they never agreed to that. That's my problem. They didn't agree to do those things or be that way. I'm holding them to some standard that's measured against me. And sometimes it's better and sometimes it's worse. But I'm trying not to have those types of expectations of people, students, seniors, friends, family, my boss. And I'm trying really hard not to measure them necessarily against the standards that I hold, because those are mine. If everybody holds themselves to the highest possible standard that they can, you can't disappoint yourself or anybody else.
Never expect things to be a certain way. And that way you're always ready for anything. You've got a guy that you know as being, say, a good puncher. You're looking for that while everything else opens up. It's very dangerous.
Yeah. You get tunnel vision.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, fixated on certain things. Yeah. I want to pick up on something that Sensei Legacy was mentioning. He was talking about his going for a Shodan test. And again, the question I like to ask as many people as I can is, in your opinion, what does a Shodan mean to you? And follow up to that is, should there be a minimum age for someone to earn their Shodan?
Well, as a teacher, no one, in my opinion, should be a black belt before they're 16 years old. For instance, if, say you had, I said that to a woman one time. She brought her 13-year-old daughter to me to learn karate because she had been competing. And then she asked me all the regular questions, and then I said to her, well, what is her grade? What belt does she hold? She goes, oh, she's a second-degree black belt. And everything, I guess, changed because I think she knew, and I said no. I turned her down. And she sort of asked me why. I said, well, let's say you're all sleeping at home and somebody breaks into your house. I was talking to her husband. Are you going to send your 13-year-old daughter downstairs to defend you? And he didn't know what to say. I don't believe that anybody, there may be this special person who could do it at 13. 16 is probably the youngest where you've matured enough, then you could hold the mind and the boldness to hurt somebody badly. So, and on the other hand, and on a teacher's side, a Shodan is simply someone who's mastered the basics. Not all the philosophy and all katas. Just there are only 10 basics. 4 blocks, 4 kicks, a punch, and a shudo, basically. And those are what you are an expert in. You're an expert, not a master. You're an expert. And something I'd like to add to that is that there are no yellow belt katas. There are no green belt. All the katas are black belt katas. That is just how good you are at them. That's what your belt represents. Everything is black belt stuff. Everything can harm you very, very badly, especially if you don't know how to do it and you face someone who does. That's what a black belt is. The first man, that's what it really is. It's woman, man, woman. The first man, woman. That's the first mature martial arts person. They've just reached maturity. So much more after that.
Yeah. So to paraphrase, then you would characterize it as like a rite of passage sort of thing, like it's a.
You say that,
To it?
That's when they've opened the door.
Mm-hmm.
They've opened the door to see the entire room. It's different.
So Sensei Dauphin, should I bother asking you, or will it be the exact same answer?
It'd be, well, what I could tell you is what a Shodan is in Legacy Shorin-Ryu. I could give you a window into that, what that looks like.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so, and let's keep in mind how belts started, right? Jigoro Kano, the founder of Judo, started belts. Funakoshi adopted them, and it was a teaching tool. It wasn't, and then it ended up being something for people to aspire to, right? Like it was because Funakoshi walked into a room and there were 200 people there, and he couldn't remember from last week who was who. So they started tying belts on people to say, okay, all of you guys know your bit, and that's how they could remember who to teach what to, right? Like that's how the belt started. In Legacy Shorin-Ryu, for instance, my grading, and every grading I've seen since then, so this is not unique to me, every black belt in Legacy Shorin-Ryu goes through some version of this. And it'll give you an idea of why you have to be 16. And as a matter of fact, at my grading, there were 12 of us grading to Shodan. And so we had to do all of our basics for a while, like a substantial amount of time. Then we had to be in front of the panel of black belts and answer questions after you're tired, like what is your postal code? Who founded Shorin-Ryu? And you can hardly breathe. Then you do all your 16 katas, some as a group, but often by yourself. Then you have to demonstrate bunkai from some of those katas. And then the fighting starts. And as Sensei Legacy said, at my Shodan grading, we didn't wear equipment. And I had 22 fights in a row. I had to fight 22 fights in a row. And you do pretty good in the beginning. It was okay for maybe the first 4 or 6 fights. And then the next 7 to 11 or 12 fights, maybe it's equal, you're doing okay. And then your last 12 fights, you just get your butt kicked, handed to you. But Sensei would not let the fight ended until you have at least one scoring definitive blow that would end a fight. No matter how tired you are and no matter how beat up you are. And even my daughter, who is a second dan now, when she was 17, it was the same thing. She got hit with a side kick and got knocked through like 3 rows of chairs when she was fighting to get her Shodan. And I remember when it was done, Sensei Legacy said, okay, you can leave the room now. And we were in the YWCA in St. Thomas. And I remember going out and leaning over the rail and throwing up and kind of just looking down. And like everything that could come out of my face was coming out of my face. There were tears coming out, there was blood coming out, and there was throw up coming out, all of it. But I just want to, so that's what a Shodan is in Legacy Shorin-Ryu. I've been to other places where it's not that, sadly. I like that. Because what I will tell you is when you go through that rite of passage, the next day when you come to the dojo and the sensei says to you, okay, you're going to fight this guy for 5 minutes now. You don't quite think of it the same way anymore because, the day before you just did 3 hours and 45 minutes of fighting where you were getting beaten up and you had to be tough and your hands and feet and ribs are mangled when you're done and there's probably blood coming out of your nose and you have a fat lip and you feel great. You feel amazing. Right? So that's what a Shodan is in Legacy Shorin-Ryu, which I think is a great thing. I think it's uncommon amongst uncommon people, to coin a phrase from Joe Rogan. And I think it changes your world. And if you don't have that experience, you will find it somewhere at some point if you stay in martial arts long enough.
Yeah.
Just so we don't scare some new people off, it is fairly safe. Like things never get out of hand. You gotta get hurt a bit. You're fighting.
Yeah.
When you roller skate, you fall down, scrape your knee. When you're in there fighting, you're fighting. You've put yourself in there because you want to be a good fighter. It's my job to tell my student the truth and to present them the truth. Karate is not bouncing up and down, sticking your hand out, and you get a point. Karate is a Shorin-Ryu anyway, is a street level self-defense. So you can defend your life. If you back in the real days, in Matsumura's day, and just walking around home in Okinawa, if you went to bed that night, you did really good. That's why martial arts were invented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is a good segue into another question, and not to disparage it, but I'm just curious about your thoughts on sport karate today. Timely now that the Olympics, the Tokyo Olympics are going to be taking place in a week or a couple of weeks, and for the first time, karate is a part of that. Any thoughts on whether this is good for the art, or is it more of a sport, which is very different from Budo karate?
I have two views. One is that is great for karate. It gets it out there. People get to see it. They see the kata aspect and come in and sometimes join for that, but then they'll see the rest. So yes, it's good. Being an Olympic gold medalist or anything, going into Olympics is great for any human being. On the other hand, now I see in Canada that what they're trying to do is and they're trying to gain control through the governing bodies that send you to the Olympics, where those guys are a sport karate person and have no idea what martial arts is. They're just sport guys. They don't really know about some of the philosophies or some of the killing techniques, like white crane, for instance. That's all overlooked for the guy who can throw a good fast punch before the other guy.
Yeah.
Mostly it just gives him a fat lip and knocks him down. I have several students who are world champions, females. Patricia Beauregard, for instance. If you went to the World Championships, I believe it was in Spain, and there are two types. There's the type where you stand in classical way and score the points. That's pretty rough. And she came in second. She got a silver medal. And then there's the, okay, come on, everybody, let's get at it. She came in first in that. And she came home with a split lip, fat lip, bit of a black eye. And she looked at me, she's French. I won. That's what I won. So you can see that there's someone trying to hold up the values of the martial arts from the 1800s of Matsumura's, that people doing sport karate have no idea what that is, not in its full capacity. Whereas I respect them for what they are doing for the sport side of it.
For the athleticism,
yeah. They are not masters of karate. They're not guys who studied. They do the Olympics, and then when they're 30 years old, we'll give them, or 40. They're not in there anymore. It's usually young, fast people just doing the punching and kicking. There's a lot of it missed in that way, but there's a lot of respect in being in the Olympics.
Anything to add, Sensei Dauphin?
I really like watching sport karate. They're great, like amazing athletes. I liked competing. I'm proud that I got to compete internationally. I'm really proud of that. It's a special feeling to put your country's flag on your back and get on a plane, go to another place where that's, and many of the sport competitors I competed against had some type of a classical background, and a lot of them did not. They just trained. So I don't like to paint everybody with the same brush, but where I would key in on is what Sensei Legacy said about the politics is really the bad thing, right? The people who control these things and try and push it all in one direction, and it doesn't, let's be honest, it doesn't only just exist in sport karate. It's in people's dojos. Politics is everywhere. And to me, that's the problem. It's probably more in sport karate though, because you're competing, you're vying against other people. So then you're looking for any advantage to get yourself into the position where you can, I won. Right? Whereas in classical karate, it's more about being on the path. You're winning if you're still training, and you're still training hard and you're practicing. It's not the destination, it's the journey.
Yeah.
For instance, if I may add just a bit more, is I've won one or two, not quite as good as Randy, but I won one or two competitions. Yeah, when boom, it's over and you step back and the guy holds your arm up, man, you're really excited, you're really happy, you're really proud of yourself. To give you your kata, you bow. The second you step out of the ring, you're looking for a place to put it down. But today, I am more proud of myself for being able to pass the way to someone else and to enrich someone else's life, as opposed to putting the trophy in the window or whatever you do with it.
So picking up on that, you know, what advice would you have for somebody who's looking to start karate or another martial art, you know, either for themselves or for say some their children or whichever else? Like, what should someone look for when they're searching out a teacher or a school?
Did you want to say something, Randy? Excuse me, sir.
I did, if you don't mind, because Sensei said that he won a tournament or two, and being as this is kind of, you like the history slant of this stuff. You know, Sensei won the Patoku-kai Canadian Championship, Black Belt Championship a number of times against, you know, and in those days, the people that you were competing against are all legends today. You've had them on this show. It's like, you know, people like Tony Facchetti and Ten Martin and Billy Hines, and all those were the senseis that were around back then. They call it the blood and guts era for a reason. So winning a tournament back there was no joke. But you can go on YouTube now. You can go on Hanshi McCarthy's YouTube. You can find Sensei Legacy fighting in 1972 in the Elmwood Casino in Windsor. Leo Laux was there. Other people, Wally Slocki is in that video. Sensei Slocki is there. Which is kind of, if not the first time in Canada, that's one of the first times in Canada where kickboxing was starting to happen. And they were wearing punch, kick, sponge stuff, not actual kickboxing equipment. You can go look at that. So I just wanted to throw that out there because, as you know, Sensei's always going to be really humble and not toot his own horn because he's a humble person. So sorry. Your question. I didn't mean to hijack your question. I apologize.
No, not at all. Not at all. I appreciate your jumping in and enlightening or shedding light on that. You know, it's what I expected and hoping would happen. So, sorry,
I wouldn't have said anything if I knew he was going to say that. I'm very sorry. Could you repeat your question?
Yeah, the question you were talking about, you know, pride in being able to bring somebody, you know, through the journey and that, and my question was around, you know, what advice would you have for anybody who's looking to start the martial arts, either for themselves or for their children or whichever, you know, what should they be looking for either in a teacher or in a dojo or school?
Well, I would, instead of just walking somebody into the neighborhood, there's approximately 85% of all karate clubs are not real. And I said that once in front of a couple of my seniors, and they said, Mr. Legacy, you're being very generous. Listen to what I'm going to say. Look for a classical karate teacher. That's how you're going to get, we'll say, the secrets of the martial arts. These guys had classical teachers. So now you have people that reach back to Matsumura. You don't find some guy on the side of the road who's been doing karate 5 years and knows nothing because he never had an instructor. If you have an instructor, you never actually pass your instructor because he is still moving along. Maybe you become a better fighter than him. That's quite possible. But if you want to be a full martial artist, you need to have a sensei. I am 75 years old. I have a sensei because I believe that to be true. And he funnels, passes on, and teaches me the things that are good and necessary. Philosophy, history, and physical. And then once you find yourself a good classical teacher, dedicate yourself to him or her. Do what they tell you within reason. You know, even a classical guy it should all make sense. To be reasonable, check him out, look at his background. And the first thing I want to tell you, especially if you're a parent, go into the school. Don't look at the teacher. Don't look at him and say, wow, he's really good. He may be good, but he may be a lousy teacher. Look at the students. See what they're doing. Are they running around like a babysitting service? Or are they lying? Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? Do they look like they're doing martial arts? Are they giving them chocolate bars to get them to come back at the end of at the next class? Martial arts, remember, is a killing art. People defended their lives. You're not going to find a 6 or a 7-year-old person who can do that. Much like I mentioned, that 13-year-old girl. She may be good. She may be good in the dojo. But if she's facing some drunk guy who weighs 320 pounds, and he's got a baseball bat, and he's breaking into your house, that's a totally different story than a real martial art.
Sensei Dauphin, any further thoughts on that? Like, you know, you talked a little bit at the beginning about your introduction to Sensei Legacy, and it was less about karate; it was more about the man. You know, what are your thoughts on selecting a school or selecting a teacher?
I think you should select a teacher. Like, I don't know how to say this. I love karate. Karate is my favorite. We all love karate. You know, when you go to a BJJ dojo, they say BJJ is the best. And when you go to a karate dojo, they say karate is the best. And if you go to a judo dojo, they say judo is the best. And that makes sense to me, because why would you go join the third best thing? Like, why would you go somewhere and say, I think this is the third best thing. These other two are better, but I'm going to do this. Right? You probably wouldn't. But having said that, if you're in a place where there's an outstanding judo teacher and a crappy karate teacher, go with the judo teacher. Find the better teacher in martial arts. Find the teacher that is best, and then just devote yourself to what they say and what they tell you to do. Again, going back to what Sensei said, without a lot of expectations. A piece of advice I would give parents would be, bring your kids to the dojo. Like, this is for kids now. Adults, you'll understand this. Like, and if you don't, these dojos wouldn't be the dojos for you, right? I've had people say, well, you know, my friend down the street got his black belt in 2.5 or 3 years, and it's 5 years in, and I'm only a second kyu. And I say, well, your friend wouldn't be a black belt here. You know, they're not a black belt here. They're only a black belt there. But don't bring your kids someplace with some expectation that, especially on the wrapper, right? My kid has to be a yellow belt in 6 months, or like my kid has to be, well, what is the black belt? Well, I'll pay you more to get, well, just take the black belt and go away, right? Like, just go away. And that's the advice I would give to parents is, we're not school teachers. You're with a school teacher for 1 year. Maybe you get that teacher again at some point. If you're in high school, maybe you'll have a teacher once or twice, the same teacher. you know, and the hockey programs in Canada, you don't get the same coach year after year. You get different coaches every year. Not in karate. You're bringing somebody there, and you're charged with teaching them for a much longer duration of time, maybe a lifetime. It's probably a lifetime. And that's what you should hope for. All the other stuff will come after the training is first, right? The belts will come, the championships will come, the successes will come, the bravery will come after all the training and teaching is done. The other stuff comes. That's my thinking on it. And I can proudly say that because I've done it for 33 years. I can say that because I've just devoted myself to the training for 33 years. Mm-hmm. If on this call, Sensei Legacy says to me, when this is hung up, I want you to go over there and I want you to do this for 45 minutes, I'm going to do that. Without an expectation of getting something for it, I'm going to do it because he's trying to help me get better.
Unfortunately, you're sometimes in an area where there isn't a good school. And you've got to, they just set them anywhere. So there's always a downside to something good.
Yeah, it's good to have variety. That's for sure.
I think a problem though would be when people come in and they compare instead of focusing on the training. You'll still even get farther in a bad school if you focus on just yourself and training and stay focused on you. Because what I a lot of times get, well, why is Billy getting their green belt and they joined on the same day and Frank is not getting his green belt? And they don't want to hear the answer.
Yeah.
Billy is better, right? Like, and that's at this particular time, not a better human, not a better, but at executing these techniques, Billy is doing it better. Don't worry about Billy, just worry about Fred. Just stay focused. They're all special. They're all unique. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's comparing to each other that makes it really bad, I think, and causes that angst. If somebody comes in and they love what they're doing and they're not, and a parent never says to them, they'll probably just be happy to just keep coming in and doing what we're teaching them to do.
The hardest thing to do is to tell a young person no. For instance, I had this young person come in, and he was being graded for a purple belt. He was doing the Hanshi kata. I myself didn't think, like everyone's an individual, you have to grade them as individuals. I just didn't think he had worked enough in at his level for himself. He hadn't worked hard enough. I thought he could do better. So I didn't pass him. After the grading was over, all the milling around, I immediately saw the corner of my eye, the mom and father come up. The mother was a little bit behind him. And the father came right up to me and he says, well, what happened? I said, well, I know your son very well. We see him training. We know how he works. He has better potential than this. And if he stays 3 more months, he'll reach that potential. And then in that way, he'd become a much better martial artist. He said, and I said, I hope he doesn't quit. I looked at him and I said, you come back. You go and train hard. And when you come back, you will be so happy that I didn't pass you and that you're much better for it. 3 months passes, the kid comes back. He's sharp as a pin. He looks great. Whilst he was performing, I looked at his dad and his dad looked back at me and smiled. And when it was over, he had his belt and his piece of paper and he walked up to me with his dad and I said, how do you feel today? I feel great, he said. I said, are you happy that I failed you? He goes, yes. Mm-hmm. We're servants. Samurai means manservant. That's what it means. We're there to serve the people. We're there to tell them the truth. You can't tell a guy he's a black belt if he's not. because he will think he is. He'll go out in the street and get himself hurt, even just trying to help somebody else. So in the training, it's in the sensei. The sensei lays the quality. If there's a bad karate club and the students are bad, it's the sensei's fault. It's on his shoulders. I try not to do that. When people see my students, I like them, they come up to me and say, you know, your student didn't win over there, but he did a nice job. Or, you know, your students were really polite, or other ones were, you know, threw their belts on the floor and different stuff. Not that that really matters, but just small things. We're there to tell them the truth. They give you money for you to tell them the truth. That's your duty as a sensei.
Here's one that I like to ask. It's always interesting, the responses I get, because they're never the same. If you could do it all over again, you know, if you look back on your career, martial arts career, if you could do it all over again, is there anything that you would do differently, or you know, is there something that you know now that you wish you knew sooner?
No, because I'm here now, and I'm still here now, and I always will be here. The people who helped me were good people. If I could, I'd do it the same way because of the ones that got to me. My first sensei, which was like a pioneer, I would say he was the least skilled, but he led me to the right place. When he was finished, this is what happened with me. When he got me up to a brown belt, he said, Gary, really, I can't bring you any further. And then he said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay for you to go on weekends for a year to Toronto, to Benny Allen on the beaches. That was where his dojo was. So I met Billy Hines, Tony Facchetti, all the best of the best. Skull Backtrack, Gary Hales, all those guys. The good guys all came from his club. I mean, he was a fantastic teacher. So personally, no, I wouldn't do anything different. I'm thinking about the tree, but I think that may have made me much smarter and brought me very quickly over Zen. Zen is really the understanding of now.
Yeah.
Now that I can't change it because it's not now, it's not that now anymore. I learned that from it. But I couldn't change what I had already done. That was important to me. I had a little kid come up to me. I was at a tournament one time. I had a little kid come up to me, and he must have been 8 or 9. And it made my heart flutter. He goes, you're the guy who punched that tree, aren't you? See, Sensei or somebody must have told him about that. That humbled me a little bit.
Yeah. Do you wish that you had started your journey earlier in life? Like you started at 22, which is still pretty young, but...
Yeah, I wasn't ready. I moved around a lot. I'm from the East Coast. We were very poor. Very, very poor. I moved to Quebec, and then I'm a Frenchman, but we could speak English, so the separatists didn't like it. We were fighting in the street at least once a week. The families, the bigger guys would attack my brother. My brother is like a quiet, simple person. He's intelligent, but I mean, he just was a good, quiet guy. They used to pick on him in school, the brothers in the Catholic schools and that. One guy broke a hockey stick on his back. And it wasn't because we weren't French. It was because we spoke English.
Mm-hmm.
Then my parents got fed up, and we moved to Sarnia, Ontario. And we were treated really good by the English. So it wasn't until then that my parents and myself could really get comfortable, in a home, and have friends. It was tough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Also, it was right after the war. Things were unsettled. There were not a lot of jobs, especially in the East Coast. Most of the people joined the Army to survive. So I love my parents and my brothers and sisters, and I would never trade that for anything. I just wasn't ready.
Yeah. So, Sensei Dauphin, anything, any thoughts on your journey? Would you do anything differently, or is there anything that you know now that you wish you had known about sooner in your career?
I would have to say the same as like Sensei Legacy. No, like I think when I was younger, I was a little more aggressive in karate. If I didn't have the right teacher, it wouldn't have suited me well at that time. I think it would have maybe got me into more trouble. And when people say, about just something different or training with a different person, I don't know. Like, I mean, I idolize Matsumura or Itosu or these people, but I don't really know what they were like. I'm training with the people that I want to train with. I wouldn't trade those people for anybody in any time in history ever. And Sensei Legacy and I have talked about this, and I just know there could be and could have been other sensei-student relationships that were as good as mine and Sensei Legacy's, but I highly doubt in any time in history you're going to find a stronger sensei-student relationship than we have. And, when one thing that would be good, but I don't think it would even, I don't know, because you wouldn't come to the place that you are now the same way. And I'm really happy with where I am. I'm really happy in my life with my family and my friends and my teachers. My life is rich every day when I wake up and full and exciting and challenging in the right ways. So I don't think so. Students, I wish in the beginning, I hope, value being a student. I think I knew that in the beginning. I loved being a student. And in the beginning, I probably wasn't the most talented physically, and I probably wasn't the most intelligent person in the dojo with Sensei Legacy. But I have a feeling I was always a good student. From the day that I walked in, I did what Sensei Legacy told me to do. I respected my seniors. I listened to what they say. I tried really hard. And I still do that today. I still like being a student. Having a student mindset is very good.
Student is the greatest title. It's the one that will get you all the others. You think about that. Hanshi. I got to be a Hanshi because I was a student. I got to be a black belt because I was a student. I got to be a decent fighter because I was a student. The greatest student, the greatest title of all is student. You be that all your life, all your martial arts life.
So what would you say if you could summarize it in a quick phrase? What would you say that the martial arts has given you? And I'm going to preempt Sensei Dauphin because he kind of covered it off. Experiences, friendships, is in his life. He's quite happy with that, and it sounds like he attributes a lot of that to his martial arts journey. Not to speak for you, but this is what I'm hearing from it. But for you, Sensei Legacy, what would you say that the martial arts has given you?
I think it's the greatest thing is confidence. Confidence. When you have confidence, you will do different things. You will try different things. You'll believe in yourself, and you won't let anybody bully you or make you say yes to stuff that you don't believe. Confidence is like, water is in everything. It's in tea. It's in Coke. It's in
beer.
It's in beer. Water is the main ingredient in everything. confidence is the main ingredient that karate gives you in order to be able to execute everything else. Confidence, a certainty in yourself, a belief in yourself. You give any young person that, they will be successful.
Mm. Yeah. Sensei Dauphin, did I spill the beans on you, or is there anything further?
Yeah, you know, the one thing that where martial arts has helped me a lot, definitely what Sensei says about confidence, but outside of martial art, I'm always a martial artist. I approach everything. When I go to the University of Waterloo and I do my job, I approach it as a martial artist always. And I have a new boss. I've been working with him for about 5 years now. And one of the things he said to me was, you know, Randy, one of the things I truly believe is I could give you a job that you would totally hate. You wouldn't want to do it. You would totally despise the job. And if I asked you to do it, the second you walked out the door, you would start trying to do it, and you would start trying to do it to the best of your possible ability. And I think along with that confidence, there's no doubt about it, the ability to do the grind, to endure, to just put your head down and keep doing the work, and you're tired and you're uncomfortable, but you keep doing the work and you keep working and you keep working. I think that's you know, we talked about it a little bit earlier, right? You're not waiting for somebody to give it to you. You're willing to go get it.
Mm.
Okay? You're willing to go get it. The sensei doesn't take the belt from that side of the room and walk it over to you. You got to travel to the other side of the room and go get it. So
Also, I'd like to clear a couple of things up. We're always looking at it that I'm teaching Randy. Standing in front of Randy Dauphin, you're going to learn things. I learned a lot from him as well.
thank you, Sensei.
Yeah, I'm getting. Yeah, I'm getting that sense from both of you. Actually, it's kind of funny when we were setting up this call. You know, Sensei Dauphin and I were conversing on Messenger, and he kind of, I would always refer to him as Sensei Dauphin, Sensei Dauphin. He was like, no, just call me Randy. We're the same age. We're this, we're that. But my rule on that is, you know, anybody who I think who's a martial artist, anybody who I think I can learn something from, I will gladly call them Sensei. And you know, I have no doubt that I and many people who already have, and many more who will have a lot to learn from both of you. So
Because you have a big heart and a strong mind. You understand martial arts.
yeah, well, for my own journey, if I can just share, the thing that I think has given me the most is, you know, aside from the friendships and everything else that I've founded, but it helped me tame my own ego. When your ego, you know, and it comes down to a lot of what Sensei Dauphin has said, you know, it's about the attitude. Just do it. Just get in there and do what you're supposed to do. Not what you want to do always, but what you're supposed to do. And for me, that has been, I think, the big takeaway for me. You know, I know others that share the same story, but also obviously there are a lot of other different takes on it as well. So with all that said, gentlemen, I really genuinely enjoyed this conversation today. Been really looking forward to this opportunity for quite a while, and really pleased that we're able to arrange it. Before we sign off, is there anything that you wanted to add that we haven't covered, or any information about, you know, where people can find you or your dojos or your association or anything like that? Is anything you want to end with?
I imagine you just look at Legacy Shorin-Ryu Karate Jitsu, and if you want to find me, I'm accessible. If you want to learn White Crane, or if you would like to see what White Crane is, I don't mind showing you without any commitments or anything like that. We're easy accessible. We're just average guys.
And now things opening up. Now with things opening up again, you know, hopefully, you know, will be opportunities for more people to find you, right, in person.
Probably spend more private lessons with me than you would spend on sending yourself to a group class where you're teaching 20 kids running around trying to get something down. When you're a private or a semi-private in front of the sensei, he's staring you down. If you want your child or your friend to learn real martial arts, he should at least be standing in front of the sensei by himself.
Yeah. Sensei Dauphin, anything a final word from you?
I really, I'm happy things are opening up. I'm really looking forward to people being back in the dojos again. Again, it's fairly easy to find me. If you want to find Sensei Legacy or me, we're usually not too far from each other. The URL kind of says it all. We're the owners of www.shorin-ryu.ca. Not Shorin-Ryu 1, not Shorin-Ryu, and Shorin-Ryu.ca. You go to www.shorin-ryu.ca. You'll find Sensei Legacy or me. And we should say we have other really, really good instructors in Legacy Shorin-Ryu. Nick McLaren out west, if you go train with him or Mike Russell, they're great instructors. In the London area, Sensei Bauren, Sensei Chucky, Sensei Kettlebrewer. We have a great association with really good teachers. Very, very good teachers.
Excellent. I'll be sure to include, you know, the links, you know, in the description for this video, and I'll also link to the podcast, your podcast. You know, really enjoying those, and I think we've shared a few of the same guests, and but the stories are always different, you know, that come out of them. So you know, I think the work that we're doing with these things, they complement each other, and I would encourage you, if there was ever any doubt that you're going to not keep going, I would encourage you to please keep it up, and because you know it's doing a great service, I think.
Yeah, you as well. I remember when I think we had done a few. We got out of the gate pretty quick, and then you did one. I think it was your first one was Sensei Miletsky, right? Was the first?
That's correct. Yes.
Came on, and I remember I was so excited. I watched it because I knew we wanted to have Sensei Miletsky on. So I was like, "Oh, this is awesome! I'm going to watch this." And I must have gotten like 7 or 10 calls, and it's like somebody's copying somebody, and I'm like, "Whoa! No, nobody's copying. Like this is the internet. Everybody's doing their own thing, and." If 2 people have the same idea simultaneous, nobody's copying anybody, and it's good. The bottom line is what you're doing, it's great for martial arts. It's great for martial arts today, and it's going to be great for martial arts in 50 years. So thank you for what you're doing. I don't feel competitive with you, and I'm super excited that you're doing it. I enjoy watching it, and I'm going to continue to enjoy watching your show. I love it. I learn so much when I watch it every time. So thank you as well for having us on and for doing the work you're doing.
All right. Well,
we're grateful for doing it.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a great way to end this. A bit of a crossover here. So this is great. Again, gentlemen, a genuine pleasure. Really, really enjoyed our conversation this evening. So thank you both, and stay well.
Thanks so much.